Hello everyone and welcome back to SwitchUp, and today's episode where we destroy our backlogs with a few new additions. Now I have to say, this week is looking pretty damn good. I know I say that every week, but it does seem like we've just had a continuous flow of a rotation of brilliant sales. Now first up we have the winner of our free game. Remember, you can win a copy of something each and every week just by leaving your comments, and then one of them gets picked. And if you want to save yourself some money on any of these titles, buy your eShop credit from us over at switchup.gg. You get 5% in cashback just by using the site. Alright, what are the best games on sale? Well, my name's Mark Walker. Welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. First off, let's start with the deepest ever sale on Eastward. It's down to 50% off until September the 30th. And if you don't know, Eastward was a really nice, like an action-adventure game, featuring two protagonists working their way across this land that was being corrupted by, I think it was called the miasma, which we've heard in a number of games now. Even the new Zelda's got a bit of miasma action. But what was really cool was we then saw, quite recently, like a year or so back, a new expansion for the Eastward game that basically gave you a Stardew Valley mode and a brand new storyline. Amazing, really good fun. I've got a full review of it. I don't think many people actually realised it existed. But yeah, it's well worth buying the game and definitely worth picking up that DLC as well. The sale for this one goes on until September the 30th. Okay, this episode is sponsored by PickUp with their recent release, Nanoapostle, which I'm sure you can already see just from the visuals alone is an absolutely cracking title. It's set within the bowels of a shadowy research facility where Anita, a girl birthed from experimental procedures, she's implanted with the sentient nanomechanical entity known as an apostle. She fights against different bioweapons, things like axe-wielding mechs, weird psychokinetic terrors, and loads of others, and they're multi-stage battles. The enemies have basically got a fail-safe in them, where when you're threatening them, they become more ferocious, and they can warp the environments around them to make your job more difficult. There's a symbiotic relationship between Anita and Apostle, which grants her numerous abilities such as a dodge, parry, a series of slashing attacks, as well as projectile moves. And it's got what's known as the destruction point system. You can basically utilize Apostle's nanites to identify structural weaknesses and then exploit your opponent's vulnerabilities to land more powerful, devastating blows. So Nanoapostle costs £16.99, regional equivalents at the bottom of your screen, but there is a 10% discount that runs all the way to September the 25th. Certainly worth checking out, and a thanks once again to the publisher for sponsoring this episode. Now, Tales of Symphonia Remastered is a brilliant game. It's a classic. We had a version that ran actually faster than this on one of the previous Nintendo consoles. It used to run at 60 FPS. Was it on the GameCube or was it on the Wii? Can't remember. But this one's based on the PlayStation version, which only ran at 30. But that wasn't really, I don't really care about that. This one was running at about 15 frames per second for the first couple of months, and they had patched it up continuously. There was even a patch, I think, this year that improved things even further, and now it's pretty much perfect for what is an excellent JRPG with just a great storyline. If you're a JRPG fan, this is one that you shouldn't sleep on. Certainly not in the US at the moment. It's 65% off until October the 3rd. Another game with like a really nice story, I guess, is Death's Gambit. Now, when this first was launched, it's a Metroidvania that people enjoyed. You know, it had a few things that made it stand out, had a nice visual style. But unfortunately, the community just felt it lacked a number of features. Now, rather than just leave it there, the developer went away, completely reworked a ton of systems within it, and released Death's Gambit Afterlife, which is like the game they should have made, or would have made, I guess, given the time. And it's amazing. You can navigate the world, you can like ride a horse from one side of the map to the other. It does combat brilliantly. It has a few moments where you get locked in, a bit like Guacamelee, where the barriers come down and you're fighting in there for your life, and then you have to defeat the enemies and they'll open back up. It has moments like that in there, but it also has really well designed Metroidvania elements. This is a cracking game and the combat's fun as well. I haven't really got much negative to say. You should go check out our review on it. But that sale, that one goes on until I think it's September the 30th. Now, Digimon World The Next Order was my first, or at least one of my first Digimon experiences when it released on the Nintendo Switch. Now, I think I had played one other game, I can't remember which one it was, and then maybe a bit of this on a friend's computer. But really, I was a Pokemon kid growing up, so yeah, I didn't know how good it was, honestly, and I really enjoyed this. I found it very, very addictive. It uses a different system to Pokemon, and it's almost like your Digimon can evolve in a number of different ways based on your actions. I ended up with like the worst one. Everyone in the comments of my review was like, you're literally using the worst ever Digimon. I don't know. How are you supposed to know if you've never played it before? I liked it. It was like some sad plant thing. It did alright for me, but that's by the by. I actually really enjoyed the game. It was very challenging as well, and it had I don't know, it just had a different flavour to it than Pokemon. I really enjoyed it. The sale for that is 75% off in the US regions, and that goes on until October the 3rd. I had to include Tony Hawk's 1 and 2 at this price. This is silly. This is 65% off until September the 23rd, so you haven't got a great deal of time. But yeah, I've definitely not seen this as cheap as this. It's the cheapest it's ever been, I think. Now, like many of you, I was there on the PlayStation 1, putting Tony Hawk's in, and to be honest, I think it was Tony Hawk's 2 that I really kind of got on board with, playing that was it like the Underground Warehouse or something? The Hangar? One of those. And they're just cracking games, and then they updated them, and I didn't think it would work very well on Switch, but actually, I was pleasantly surprised. It runs well. They still hold up to this day. Why can't people make good skating games? And just general, there are a lot of quirkier sports, aren't there, that don't get good games. They just don't add up. Do you remember 1080p snowboarding? That was absolutely amazing. And SSX Tricky. They were great games. But then it was like no one could make ones the same. I know we had that recent one, was it Skate? And in fairness, I haven't played enough of that, so I don't really know. Maybe that was amazing and, I just missed it. But it does feel like a lot of the heyday games were the best, and they kind of haven't been outdone since. And this one at, 65% off? Yes, please. This is a really good time to consider picking up the Atelier games, so if you've got one of them and you're looking for the next one, I think all of them are on their lowest ever discounts. But the first game is great. It's 67% off. It obviously introduces you to Ryza, the new character for this. Well, it's a trilogy, isn't it? And all of those games are on Switch as well. And it was a bit of a reboot for the Atelier series, or at least it felt it in my opinion. There's about 912 games, and you really can start with these. The problem they've had since this reboot is that they've now got stuck just repeating Ryza in different flavours. But the combat was very nice. It had a refined Atelier system. Personally, I liked the second game the most, and that is on sale as well if you've got the first. But the third one was very much like a fan service swan song, I guess, while still being very good. It was full-on fan service, and it didn't run as well as the second. So yeah, all of the Atelier games at the moment are on decent discounts. Nier Automata is so good. It's so good. You play, we obviously have to play so many games for review. There are some that like the Plucky Squire, I really enjoyed it, I loved it. It has some issues on Switch performance-wise. It was always going to be the way for now until they patch it, but still, I think it's decent. But then there's games like Nier Automata, which they leave a mark on you, you remember certain moments in them that are just so damn cool. You're like, wow, okay. And this game's brilliant. You've got this mixture of this near future. You're playing as kind of an android that gets sent back down to Earth. You make contact with some of the survivors there. But then it's designed to be played through multiple runs. And there's not a huge amount I can say that isn't spoilery, and I think most people that know. But if you've got this one, don't stop when the credits roll. That's all I'll say. So yeah, really, really good game. And the combat is just on point. We've got to get a sequel, haven't we? Or I know there's been other Nier games. Again, not a series that I'd played much of until Nier Automata. So yeah, really nice. Now, Glen recommended Tin Hearts. He played this one, really enjoyed the game, and I think this is its cheapest, 70% off. That's a very good price. If I remember correctly, it's a bit like Lemmings in 3D. You're directing your soldiers around or something like that. I could be completely wrong and I'm talking about a completely different game. I don't think I am. But he thought it was excellent. He thought it was very clever the way that they still kept that very tight puzzling that you would find in something like Lemmings. It was very clear, wasn't it, what you had to use and where. And they still kept that feeling whilst using a full 3D environment. Yeah, really clever, good game, and it's 70% off, worth it. Now, I played 30XX before I actually played the prequel. Not the prequel, it was the game that came out before it. I think it's 20XX. But 30XX is basically a more traditional roguelite. You have a hub, you go out on these runs, very Mega Man-esque, but the community can also make levels for you to take part in. There's a nice loop, a really solid roguelite loop that works well with this format, but also having the freedom of creation in there is a nice touch. That one I think again is down to its cheapest price, 40% off, and again, check out the full review if you're interested. That one goes on until October the 9th. And my pickup for the week is Braid Anniversary Edition. I'd never played Braid before. I knew it was very, everyone loved it, and it released elsewhere, and people were like, it's great. I ended up randomly seeing this YouTube video of maybe the guy that made Braid, I'm not sure. Might be. I remember seeing a video, I'm sure it was this, and it had sold no copies. Like, it had just absolutely tanked on Switch, which it shouldn't do because it's a brilliant game. But I will say, I have to say, we're obviously not a big channel or whatever, it doesn't feel like we are, but some games get a lot of marketing and you get emails coming out and there's hype getting built, and some games it's just silence. And Braid, for us, was pretty quiet. It might have been one email, I can't really remember, but it wasn't the kind of hype I think some of these re-releases need if they want to get the attention. Or I could be really unfair, maybe it just came at a time when it was really busy. I can't remember honestly. But down I think it's 66% off, down to £6.11. That's an unmissable price. It's absolutely brilliant. You can basically manipulate time and change the flow of it forwards and backwards to solve the different puzzles. But the thing I think the developer was kind of frustrated by is this is the absolute best version of the game. He included a 12-hour recorded conversation. I think the guy is called Jonathan Blow, is it? And one of the artists, David Hellman. Yeah, and they added this huge, and it's an extensive amount of work, developer commentary in this version particularly that then went on to tank. And I think it's a bit of that frustration. It's oh come on. They also changed the graphics, improved those, the sound effects were improved. So yeah, this was my purchase of the week, £6.11. It's brilliant. I'm enjoying it a lot. About 2 or 3 hours in so far, and I can see why he's frustrated. It'd be like Picasso, re-releasing a version of a picture and then being I sold 3 copies. For goodness sakes. I mean, that's the most ridiculous analogy ever, isn't it? Picasso just rolled in his grave. What is this guy Barjan hunting and talking about? Braid, the Anniversary Edition. £6.11, 66% off, the lowest ever until September the 26th. Alright then, we have some Savaloys this week to really tickle your taste buds. Now, I've spent a couple of weeks kind of away, you wouldn't know it, but I have. I've been to the Lake District and a few other places, and I have to say hello to the guy that I met in the Lake District. He ran up to me and was like, "You're Mark from SwitchUp, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yes, it is I." It was really, it was very cool. Obviously, we don't get recognised. We're not like these, what are they called? Face tubers, I don't know. We're not like that. We're hidden behind the scenes. We haven't got very memorable faces. So it was really nice for this guy. I felt like I should have invited the fella for a Guinness. But, I didn't want to be really weird. So yeah, that was cool. He watches this video every Sunday, so hello to you, my friend. But we have the Savaloys, and I ate a lot of Savaloys while I was away. That was the red herring that, the rabbit hole I just went down and completely forgot about. Anyway, first up, in our Savaloy and Fedcook selection, we have Castlevania, the Anniversary Collection, at its ridiculously cheapest ever price. There's some brilliant games in this. Obviously, we just had the Dominus Collection. I picked that up. Absolutely loved it. Those are brilliant games. But this is also at a stupid price. You should buy it. SteamWorld Dig 2, cracking Metroidvania, down 90% in the US. Look at that price. That's just, that's an easy pickup for a great game. Not overly long, I will say. It doesn't outstay its welcome, that's for sure. It turns up at the door, says hello and runs off. But enjoyable. You've got Far Lone Sails. We all know what this one is. It's basically a boat riding simulator. You keep the boat running, working your way through the post-apocalyptic world. Just enjoying that journey, and 90% off. And then I'm really happy to say we have the Thighzers Remastered Edition. That's down to it's a couple of quid, absolute bargain, 75% off. But then, this is the crazy one, Thighzers 2 at 90% off. I think it's a quid. It's nothing. This is they're giving it away. This game looks beautiful. Now, it didn't take me too long to finish, and it had a few quirks, but man, it is so worth that price. And finally then, the last Savaloy is City of Brass, a Metroidvania where you have a whip and you're like moving your way through this Persian city. I called this I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I called this the first Persian shooter. That's quite good, isn't it? I like that. But yeah, really enjoyed it. Another that we have a full review of, but it is a roguelite, so you're making your way through the areas, defeating the enemies, trying to beat more bosses and unlock new things. Good game. So there it is for another week. I think that's a decent little lineup. Let me know what you think in the comments. As I said at the start, if you want to save money on your games and help us out a tiny little bit, buy your eShop credit over at SwitchUp.gg. Thank you to our Patreons and our members. And as always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!